I'm working with an athlete right now on managing performance anxiety. And one of the first things that we're working on is understanding the link between their thoughts and their anxiety. Whenever I'm working with sports performance anxiety, I help the athlete understand that there are thoughts about the future, right? So thoughts about what might happen, these worries that are really driving their anxiety. When they focus too much on the future, on what might happen by the end of the game, by the end of the practice, or anything else, that's where we see anxiety increase. Now, once we understand that, that helps us get a clear picture of why you're feeling anxious in the moment. The reason that I like to start there is because it helps us to get on the right path to actually managing this anxiety. Now, we need to understand what those thoughts are, but most importantly, we need to be able to understand when we are having the thoughts in the moment and what thoughts are specifically driving the anxiety so that you can work on changing those thoughts. And this is what brings me to the idea of self-awareness. Now, me and this athlete, we are talking about this idea of self-awareness right now because I'm really helping her get a clear understanding in the moment of what types of thoughts are driving her anxiety, so that she can start paying attention to these thoughts, be ready for them when she has them, and realize that, okay, when I'm having these thoughts, these are driving the feelings of anxiety. But also when I'm having feelings of anxiety, I know that I'm having these thoughts. So even if I'm not aware of them, I need to understand that these outcome thoughts will be driving my anxiety. So I need to start altering my thoughts and focusing more on process and controllable things or parts of my game to work on minimizing this anxiety. So what I want to do is discuss how you can work on building this self-awareness, because self-awareness doesn't just help with anxiety. It helps with building confidence. It helps with managing your fears if you're worried a lot about letting people down, and so that causes you to play scared because you're afraid of those consequences. If you find yourself having poor focus, we need to understand when you're losing focus, and we need to understand why you're losing focus. So what is distracting you? All of this comes from self-awareness. Now, when you're wanting to build self-awareness as an athlete, the first place that you want to look is your thinking. If you can start to understand your thinking a little bit better, if you can start to understand your thought patterns a little bit better, which means kind of the types of thoughts you have in certain situations, then you will begin building your self-awareness. So what we're going to focus on is your thinking, helping you become more aware of your thoughts. Now, I want you to choose the main mental game challenge that you feel like you struggle with. Is it performance anxiety? Is it poor focus? Is it fear? Is it worrying about other people, so you look for approval in other people? Is it negative self-talk or self-doubt? Just pick what is the main thing right now that I'm struggling with. Now I want you to think, what kind of thoughts do I have that are driving this negative way of thinking, driving this negative feeling that I have, whether it is fear, anxiety, or anything else, right? What kind of thoughts do I have? Now, an example would be if I'm dealing with a lot of fear. Some thoughts that I have that might be driving this fear are I can't strike out because I'll get benched, and so I'm afraid of getting benched. Or maybe I'm afraid of making a mistake because I don't want my coach to yell at me. Or maybe I'm afraid of embarrassing myself. And I know that if I play really poorly, I will feel embarrassed talking to my friends after the game, or spending time with my teammates, or even going back onto the bench or in the locker room or in the dugout. I'm going to feel embarrassed because of my mistakes. That's something that I'm afraid of. Maybe I'm afraid of my parents, what they're going to think of me, or maybe they'll get mad at me if I make a mistake during the game. Fear will be driven by my thoughts about the consequence, because the consequence is what I'm really afraid of. So I would start to identify, okay, what are these consequences that I'm currently afraid of happening if I do make some mistakes? If you're dealing with poor focus, right? Maybe you say, all right, well, what kind of thoughts are driving my poor focus? Maybe it's not necessarily thoughts I have, but maybe it's things that I see or things that happen. Maybe a big driver for me with my poor focus are mistakes. If I make mistakes, that causes me to lose focus because I'm stuck thinking about those mistakes during the game. I can't get my mind off of those mistakes. So I would start to write down what are some distractions that I experience. Same thing with some self-doubt. If you know that you struggle with self-doubt, some examples might be, okay, well, I'm focusing on the fact that I've made a bunch of mistakes recently. I'm thinking about how good the other team is. I'm thinking about how I just can't play well because I haven't been practicing well recently. You see how all of those thoughts are strengthening that self-doubt instead of strengthening confidence. When we're wanting to build self-awareness, we need to start by identifying what are the thoughts that you have that are leading to the feelings that you don't want to have. Just like we want to identify what are the thoughts that you have that are positive, which we'll talk about here in a second. But the first thing I strongly suggest you do is make a list of some of these worries that you have, right? Some of the thoughts that are on your mind, some of the fears you have, some of the consequences you think of, some of the distractions you experience. Just start to identify what are the things on your mind that are leading to the mental game challenge that you are currently experiencing. Now, what this is going to start to do is start to create this link, right? This association between my thoughts, the things I'm focusing on, and these negative feelings that I have when I play. We need to create that association because that association is the foundation of self-awareness. You're starting to understand that the way you think impacts the way you feel and the way you play during competition. The next thing I want to do is turn this into a more positive. So let's create the same association, but with the positive aspects of your game. So think, when I'm feeling really confident, what am I focused on? What kind of thoughts do I have, right? What's filling my mind? Maybe you say that when I'm feeling really confident, I'm thinking about just having fun, or I'm thinking about the past good games I've had, or I'm just having positive thoughts like, I can do this, I believe in myself, I know that I'm a great player. What about when you're feeling really calm and relaxed when you play? What kind of thoughts are you having there? What are you focused on? Are you thinking, I'm really grateful to be out here? Are you thinking, I can't wait to beat these guys? I'm prepared. I know that I'm going to dominate the competition, right? So you're calm because of your preparation and you're calm because of your competitiveness. Start to make a link between the positive feelings you have when you play, those positive emotional states, and the types of thoughts and the focus that you have that are driving those. So I would strongly suggest you once again make a new list, but on this positive side. So now that you have these two lists, you're starting to uncover your thoughts in relation to certain states that you're in when you play. The way that you really build self-awareness is not by going through an exercise like this one time, but starting to pay attention to this association throughout practices and games. Now, you don't want to get too caught up in this, right, and always constantly be analyzing your thoughts. But if you really want to make progress with self-awareness, which is the foundation of a strong mental game, because when you understand yourself, you understand how your thoughts and your emotions and your actions are all linked together, then you can start controlling them. So if you really want to make a strong change with this and improve in your self-awareness, what you can do is you can start going through this process on a consistent basis, where maybe you write down every single day in a post-performance journal just some different thoughts that you had, how you were feeling, but you just want to begin paying attention to your thoughts, your emotions, your actions. When you start paying attention to them, that's where your self-awareness will grow. If you have any questions about this video, please let me know in the comments below. And if you would like me to cover any other sports psychology topic, please let me know in the comments below as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I put out new videos each week on sports psychology and mental training.